And we are ready to roll for the Donovan Live Postgame Show on a Thursday night. Welcome aboard, everyone. I'm Dave DiNatale, along with Jim Donovan. No puffs of smoke coming out of 76 Lou Groza Boulevard. We have not gotten, still 24 hours later, an official confirmation that Freddie Kitchens is our head coach of the Browns. But we all know that's happening.
It is happening.
It is happening. It's going to happen. We will have an announcement at some point. I'm sure fans are going to ask. I mean, don't be worried. This is not going to be another Josh McDaniels 12th hour, 11th hour withdrawal.
So, no. I think it's a situation where he got the job yesterday, and I think he got the job yesterday. Okay, and I think that you're dealing with a guy that has no past in the way of getting a really big contract. I mean, because nowadays coordinators get pretty sizable contracts, but I don't think Freddie got even much of a readjustment to his contract when he became the interim offensive coordinator.
Happened so fast.
Yeah, right.
Not.
Yeah. And the same. I don't know that to be a fact, but I've heard that there really wasn't a big adjustment made to that. So you're dealing with a guy that is coming from being a running backs coach, and even in other past jobs in Arizona, for instance, where he was for 11 years, always a position type coach.
Yeah.
This is a very big contract for both to kind of put a number on. So I would imagine that they're trying to get through that. Now, he is doing all of the duties as the head coach. He is reaching out, interviewing guys for his staff, whether it be a coordinator or a positional coach. I mean, he is doing that. The other thing is the Haslam's are involved in soccer now.
Yes.
Okay, and I believe the MLS meetings are going on up in Chicago. Now, the day before, yesterday, there was an announcement down in Columbus with the team now that they basically own.
Yeah, the ownership, they introduced the ownership, Caleb Porter as the head coach, a $230 million stadium plan. I mean, they had a lot going on.
Yeah, they have a lot going on. And so, you have to throw all those things in. And I think, but no, there is no fear in the situation. He is the head coach of the Browns. They're working through some stuff. And I think they have to work through a lot because they can't say, well, Freddie, when you were the head coach of said team, this is what you did. And I think Freddie has to go to school on that too and get some real sage advice as to what he's owed and what he should get paid. And not only that, Dino, but the length of the contract is very important. Does he get 3 years? Or does he get the important fourth year?
Yeah,
that's important.
Do you get the option? Right. Yeah, buyouts, all that kind of stuff. So we wait for that, and we obviously probably now next week before we actually have a welcome press conference and all that kind of stuff.
Could be. I mean, it could be tomorrow.
Could be tomorrow.
I think if it's tomorrow, it's going to be very early in the day before lunch, and if it isn't tomorrow, then it's definitely Monday.
Yeah. But this will happen.
I don't think the NFL wants you to be announcing coaches on Saturday or Sunday. This is their big divisional playoff weekend.
While this is happening, we've heard a bunch of names today being thrown around as possible coordinator candidates for the Browns, and this is obviously very important. On the defensive side, Chuck Pagano.
A good friend.
Yeah. I mean, a guy that has already been here, knows this area, knows this franchise, knows this area. And also Vance Joseph, who just got let go by the Broncos. His name, his name is out there. Supposedly, I think Tom Withers said an interview might be coming as early as Saturday for Vance Joseph. Offense, I saw Jim Bob Cooter from the Lions. It's interesting though, and you and I were talking about this off air. Freddie Kitchens, I think one of the things that certainly sold him to the Browns is his ability to be a creative play caller.
I think that got him the job.
Yeah. Is that going to, you just hope that's going to be still the case once he hires the coordinator, that he's still going to be in charge of the game plan. But, if you bring in somebody who's got, years of experience, and, for example, Cooter does, I wonder how that's going to work, how that dynamic would play out.
Yeah, well, number one, these guys need jobs.
Yes.
Okay, because they're out of jobs, and so they're wherever there's a new staff, and there are, of course, 6, 7, 8 teams that are putting together new staffs, then, they're probably going to throw their hat in the ring. So, I mean, on their side, on the Todd Monken is the other name
the other guy. Yep.
From Tampa Bay, and Jim Bob Cooter from Detroit, who did actually a pretty good job for the last couple of years. I know they had a rough year, but they had a new, he was there with Matt Patricia, who came in, and it's it's kind of force-feeding a situation. Having said that, these guys want jobs, okay? They want coordinator jobs, but they also, to me, the strange thing is they have their own offenses.
Right.
That I'm sure that
their own
they're
systems,
comfortable with.
Yeah,
their own systems that they're comfortable with. Now, Freddie has his own system. I mean, and he can say, well, it's basically the Todd Haley system. Okay, but Freddie put his own spin on that, which is why the offense looked very different the last 8 games of the season. So, that's very interesting. The only other thing that I can think of, Dino, is that to become a head coach is a tremendous amount of responsibility, and there are a number of more responsibilities that go along with the job than what Freddie has been handling as both the running backs coach and the interim offensive coordinator. I mean, it's very, very large in scope, what you have to do, the media responsibilities, the overwhelming responsibility of the entire team.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Dealing with the training staff, dealing with all of that day in and day out. So, maybe the Browns are saying, hey, you might want somebody who will buy into your system and learn your language, but it will help you because it's going to be a lot more responsibility than you're used to.
So you're not overwhelmed, which is what can sometimes happen.
And it can.
I like the idea of a guy like Pagano or a guy like Vance Joseph who have head coach experience, as a potential defensive coordinator, to also give some, just be a little support, a little guidance to be able to help out if, somebody Freddie Kitchens can go to and say, hey, what happened, when you had this happen, when you got that, as I joked last night, when you got that phone call at 2 a.m, what happened? Or, you've had to make that call, when to throw the challenge flag or take that timeout before the 2-minute warning or whatever. All those game management things come up. It's nice to have somebody on your staff that has been there.
Yeah, I think I don't think that worked out well for Hugh Jackson.
I agree.
Todd Haley was
as we saw in Hard Knocks.
Yeah, it was a real, he was kind of the Brillo pad, I think, that had that kind of effect. And I think Todd, who was a head coach in Kansas City, kind of reflected back on it. Well, here's what I would have done.
Right.
And Hugh didn't do it the way that Todd did it in his situation. But that's because they were on the same side of the ball, too. Hugh was an offensive guy, believe it or not. And Todd, of course, was the offensive coordinator. But you're right. I mean, it's that defensive coordinator hire is going to be very, very important for the Browns and for Freddie Kitchens. And you have guys out there now that have been head coaches before. Now, Pagano is a great guy.
Yes.
Chuck came here with Butch Davis from the University of Miami. He coached the Browns secondary. And he then, when Butch got blown up here, that staff got blown up. I can remember being out in Oakland when the Browns were playing the Raiders out at the Coliseum, and Chuck was with the Raiders out there as a position coach. And he would always lament the fact that he wasn't in Cleveland. He liked Cleveland. He really liked the fans in Cleveland. He wished nothing but good things for Cleveland in the future. Then he went to Baltimore, and he became a defensive coordinator there, and that got him the job then in Indianapolis. He beat leukemia. So we're brothers on that.
I was going to say, something you understand.
I mean, he's been out of the game now, for a period of time, a short period of time, but I think that, he wants to get back in. It would be an interesting fit. He's a guy, I think, a lot of people, when he got sick, when he came down and was diagnosed with leukemia, remember, Bruce Arians really bailed out that situation by winning a lot.
By winning a lot of games.
And getting them into the playoffs. Then Chuck came back, and they went to an AFC championship game. He's a victim of Andrew Luck being hurt.
Right.
But you're right. I think that would help out a guy like Freddie. And definitely lead the defense, okay? You would really like to say, take the defense.
Right.
Okay?
And
I've got enough on my plate.
I've got enough on my plate. Right. Boy, you think about that Butch Davis staff at one point. I mean, you had, by my count, 3 future head coaches on that staff in Arians, Pagano, and Chudzinski. And I may be forgetting others. But it's you think about it. And, of course, it was the last time the Browns made the playoffs.
I think you're right on
2002.
that. I know, that is the only time they made the playoffs since they come back. But, I don't think that anybody else.
But,
Yeah, they were right there. Of course, now remember Romeo was on the staff at one point.
Right.
But, at one point, he was with Chris Palmer, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. Yeah. That was a pretty good staff.
With Foge as the coordinator.
Foge was basically tells the story. Foge has passed away.
Yeah.
One of the greatest guys you'll ever meet. Foge tells the story that he was fired at halftime of the Pittsburgh playoff game.
Oh. And
they fell apart. The defensive backs and defensive players came over to him on the sideline at Heinz Field when the lead started to evaporate and said, Coach,
what do we do?
Foge, what are we doing? And he said, listen to Butch, I've been fired.
Unbelievable.
He was fired
He
the
was
next
fired.
couple of days. But, imagine in the middle of a game.
Yeah.
A playoff game.
Yeah. The biggest game at the time in franchise history.
Yeah.
And still, arguably it's a playoff game, the biggest in franchise history.
Foge was just a great guy.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful guy.
He's one of the guys, it's like you sit there and talk about, you never hear anybody say a bad word about Foge Fazio. You never heard anybody say anything bad. Yeah.
I would say the same now for a guy like Bob Wiley.
Yes.
Okay, who Bob is really struggling with that injury. That was a very serious injury. And, let's hope he gets better. That's much more important than, the decision that was made yesterday. But those offensive linemen really liked Bob. He was a real character for them. And they liked him. And the way he coached them and the way sometimes he took football off the plate and did other things with them. They had a couple of funny videos together.
The Santa thing was all my favorite.
I think after the Bengals game here, I think they all went to the hospital that night with a game ball.
They did.
Yeah.
Because I remember Batonio and Treader talking about that after the game, that was the first thing that they were going to do. And as a group, they all went over and visited with him. And you could sit there and you say, well, it's a position coach. How important is it? He deserves a lot of credit, too, for the fact that, the second half of the season, Baker Mayfield, the number of sacks was down tremendously.
And hits.
Tremendously from where it had been earlier in the season. And also the fact that, Nick Chubb was, a backup when the year started. He ended up being a virtual 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah.
Give the guy coaching the Hosses some credit.
Well, he did a great job. He did a great job getting Greg Robinson to become the Greg Robinson that a lot of people thought he would never become in the NFL after being the second overall pick in the draft when he came out of college. And the other thing, I think he did a really good job. I think he did a great job with Chris Hubbard over at right tackle.
I do too. Definite improvement as the year
went along.
Yeah.
Right.
Two more things I want to bring up here with you on the show. Number one, it looks like, according to reports, the Cincinnati Bengals, as more and more, it's the announcements of who's going to become head coaches. It's been very low key, and people are like, okay, there's an agreement, but usually after the agreement, we're waiting a few days or more to find out, officially that somebody's a head coach. But it looks like, according to reports, the Bengals are going to name Zach Taylor, who's the quarterbacks coach of the Los Angeles Rams, as their head coach once the Rams season comes to an end, whether it's after this weekend, after the Super Bowl, who knows. It's amazing to me, Jimmy, and we see this. It's one coach just has the fairy dust. He's King Midas. Everything he touches turns to gold. Right now, that's Sean McVay. And anything, as I joked the other day, Cliff Kingsbury, is a friend of Sean McVay, and that was enough to get a paragraph in his bio when he was introduced as coach of the Cardinals. Now the quarterback's coach, not the play caller, but the quarterback's coach, is going to beat out a pretty good field of candidates in Cincinnati to become the head coach.
Yeah, now they do things. They do things very differently.
Yes, they do, as we know.
At Paul Brown Stadium with Mike Brown running the show. So yeah, that's I wouldn't have expected it any differently.
Right.
That you would say, where the heck did they come up with that?
Yeah.
Because they had some. I'm sure Hugh Jackson is disappointed if that's the way that's going to go. I think Hugh felt that the endorsement by Marvin Lewis at the end of the year and the fact that the Bengals scooped him right up after the Browns fired him probably led him, and all the talk that, Mike Brown loves Hugh Jackson. I'm sure Hugh Jackson probably felt pretty good that he had more than a leg up to get that job.
Inside track.
So if this scenario plays out, you're right. The pipeline already that's unbelievable. Sean McVay hasn't even won a playoff game. Yeah.
I know. I'm amazed.
And we're talking about his coaching tree.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm like amazed by this.
Right.
And look, I mean, again, he's done a great job at the Rams. I mean, when Jeff Fisher coached the Rams, I mean, they were the 7-9 Rams. I mean, they were always right about 500, but never above that.
Which is what his Titans teams were.
Yes.
A lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Right at that
8
median,
and 8, 7 and 9.
Yeah. I mean, McVay comes in and gets the most obviously out of his quarterback, and has that defense playing well. And I mean, they end up being a playoff team last year. Get the bye this year. I mean, they're on the right track. I mean, there's no question. But at least it was like, Doug Peterson's offensive coordinator, Frank Reich, becomes the head coach of the Colts. Well, they just won the Super Bowl. I can see that. And Frank Reich also has, impressive credentials as a quarterback, as a player, and as a coach.
Yes.
I mean, but it's like, wow. But then I sit there and say, well, this is what happens. Like Andy Reid disciples. This is what we've seen from guys like that. They people want to touch the goal.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
what it is.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Freddie Kitchens is kind of he would be probably associated with Bill Parcells.
Yes.
Not that he was around Parcells a lot.
1 year.
But he quotes Parcells a lot. And really anybody that is with Parcells always, I mean, Chris Palmer talked about Parcells all the time.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, he talked about Parcells. When Bill Belichick spoke here in Cleveland, and I wasn't
often.
on a rare occasion, maybe the first day of training camp, and that was it, he would talk about Parcells a lot, okay? So a guy like that has a great deal of effect. Now, I don't know if Sean McVay has that kind of effect yet, but, you're right. That's what happens. It's a copycat league.
Yeah, it really is.
In style of play and in, in ownership and how owners run their organizations. Everybody looks at the Kraft model in New England or the Lurie model with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, Jimmy Haslam did that a great deal. Or, Jimmy Haslam even looked to other sports. He looked at the San Antonio Spurs, the St. Louis Baseball Cardinals.
Yeah. To find, smooth, successful running organizations. Right. And, I'll say this, and bringing in a football-minded general manager and kind of not kicking analytics to the curb, but at least kind of de-emphasizing it and going back to, football fundamentals and letting John Dorsey put together the 53 and not have any resistance anywhere else, and put together a terrific roster, in 1 year. And the fact that I can't say this enough, the fact that the head coach is going to report to the GM, who reports to the owner, maybe they're starting to figure it out. And if you can get stability, Jimmy, it's one thing to have a breakout year. I mean, in 7-8-1 for the Browns is a breakout year, but stability is what you want. That's what the model franchises you just mentioned have.
Right. The thing I always thought in recent times with the Browns that was a flaw, and it was that they were always trying too hard to be different and to be unique, as if 1-31 wasn't unique enough. But I mean, in structure of organization, this isn't Microsoft, it's not Apple. Okay, it's a football team, and that's the nice part about really John Dorsey and his people, and definitely Freddie Kitchens. You can delve in. I mean, every organization has analytics. Okay, I mean, everybody has stats. That's analytics.
Right.
Now, it's how deep you want to go into those stats that makes it, I guess, analytics. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, it really is. I mean, if you ask Freddie Kitchens what it is, it's running, tackling,
that's it,
passing.
That's it.
Okay, and that's it.
The basics.
And that's what it is. And I think that's the beauty of the Steelers.
Yes.
All right. It's they have a style. They draft for the style. They don't rush the player, into the lineup. I mean, because it really becomes like a junior varsity. You get bumped up to the varsity thing, and it works. And it's always the same coach, and it's usually the same coaching staff that's with them too. I mean, there's that much stability there, other than Antonio Brown, but and Le'Veon Bell. But I really do believe the Browns too many times looked for the feature article in Business World to be written about them that look at the way they're doing
That's
it.
right. That's right.
And they were on the wrong side of that story too many times. It really is if it's just A plus B equals C, then that's what it is.
Yeah. Don't
overcomplicate
overthink it. Don't overthink it. And we saw, and that's why it's like this year was so impressive going from 0-16 to 7-8-1 because it was kind of going back to the basics. And it's the fact that Freddie Kitchens is now your head coach. I feel like that. It's like you're back to the basics. Last thing, playoffs this weekend. You've got, including one game here on Channel 3 on Saturday, you've got the Colts and the Chiefs. I love the matchups. The Colts and the Chiefs. The Cowboys and the Rams. That feels like a late 70s, and they're playing at the Coliseum. It feels like it should be Pat Hayden and Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson and McCutcheon and everything.
Right. Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got the Eagles and the Saints and the Chargers and the Patriots. If you handicap it, who do you like this weekend?
A lot of people think that the Chargers are playing well, and I like Anthony Lynn. I liked him when he was here. He was a really Parcells guy. He's a really tough guy, and his team plays tough. And I know Phillip Rivers, a lot of people say it's beyond his time, but it should be his time to finally make it to a Super Bowl. Sometimes I think Phillip Rivers beats Phillip Rivers.
Yes,
okay?
I would agree with
sometimes he gets too wired up in a game, and it affects the other 10 guys on the field. I mean, yelling and screaming.
And I feel like how it happens when they play the Patriots, whether New England's there when it used to be in San Diego, or whether they go to
they were
the
the number one seed that time with Marty as the coach.
Yeah, I feel like it's you try too hard.
Right. So listen, I think the reports that the New England Patriots have become obsolete are premature.
Yes.
I really do, because look at them.
Yeah.
They're still playing at home.
Yep.
They still got a bye last week. No, they're not the number one seed, but they still know how to do it. Boy, if the Chargers go in there and win, and Dino, that could be a snowy night there in New England, or afternoon in New England. The weather there could be a little rough. I would give the Chargers a lot of credit to go in there. And I know they're a great road team, but they had to come east last week to beat Baltimore. They went home, and now they're going to come east again. I just think that New England has enough to get by them. Kansas City is a really interesting thing. Andy Reid's 11-13 as a head coach in the playoffs. Home field advantage does not mean anything to them. They don't play well in their own head.
Which is crazy. You've called so many games at that stadium.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is crazy because it's a sea of red.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand it, and it's the best tailgating you'll ever see. I mean, when
Kansas City ribs.
When you hear about Kansas City barbecue, it's for real.
Right.
Boy, and the way Andrew Luck's playing, that's going to be. I think that's going to be a tight game. I really do. Now, Patrick Mahomes is the wild card in that game. If he gets them going up and down, then I think that I don't think that Indianapolis can score with them. But if Indianapolis battens down the hatches, they could go in there and win.
Yeah, that's the thing. They got some defense finally.
They really do
to support Luck.
Yeah, they're playing. Eberflus has done a really good job there. Obviously, he got interviewed by the Browns. I think the Rams will win.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think the Saints will win. Yeah. I think that Nick Foles has done a great job again, but Drew Brees in the Dome, is going to be tough to beat with that offense. And, the Saints defense which used to be nothing, plays better this year. They're better.
If the Eagles could somehow knock off the Saints,
that would be amazing.
Then look out. I mean,
the other amazing thing is that we pined over the fact that we didn't take Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Okay. And he has not played in a playoff game.
I know,
yet.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, they've gone obviously as deep as you could go last year, all the way. He has not played in a playoff game. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing.
No, that does not mean the Browns didn't make a mistake in 2016. They
sure,
did.
Right, yeah.
They did.
But I would say this, Dino, that, that they would have to be a little worried in Philadelphia about his availability and the fact that he gets hurt. And it's the way he plays.
And that kind of think of
So do you take that? Do you say, you can't play that way?
Yeah.
Then is he Carson Wentz?
Right. Right. I mean, with Foles on a walk year, boy, you talk about, will you sit there here as Browns fans and say, we got the quarterback. We don't have to worry about the quarterback. The quarterback is fine. That's tough. That's going to be an interesting offseason in Philly and amongst other places. Jimmy, have a great weekend.
Okay, you too.
We'll see everybody back here on Monday. It's the Donovan Live Postgame Show. Thanks so much for watching here on WKYC's Facebook Live.